Hi everyone. I have some technical difficulties in this one again, unfortunately. Sorry about that. I don't think it distracts too much from the great information that Faraha gives in this interview. Apologies again. Hope you enjoy the interview.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe.
Hi everyone, I'm Danny, and we're here with Faraha from the Millside Centre in Bradford. Faraha, can you tell us a bit about the Millside Centre history and how the organisation got started? And
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you a little bit about what we do at Millside. Yeah, so the Millside Centre is a community centre which is based in the city centre of Bradford, just off Thornton Road, near the university. Yeah, we only opened our doors 4 years ago, so we're fairly new. We're run by a Christian charity called Reach Beyond, which is an international organisation that works within community development in different parts of the world. But one of its projects is based here in Bradford, and it's a community centre. So, like any other community centres, before COVID, we used to run. But actually, a quick history. We Reach Beyond have been based in our building for over 30 years, and they had this kind of ground floor space which was never really used until they bought the building. It's where King's Security building used to reside. So this space was derelict. They didn't really know what to do with it, and they employed a project manager to come up with some ideas of what the space could be used for. And so she did a 10-month long research program of trying to speak to local people, understanding what their needs were, liaising with organisations and the council to see what the key priorities were. And the more they had these conversations, these were like intense, like hour-long conversations with community members, and obviously businesses in the area as well. And the kind of key things that were coming up with that people needed a safe space where they could come and access services, almost like a one-stop shop for advice, advocacy, anything to do with needing forms filling, learning a new language, upskilling, those kind of things. So yeah, it kind of made sense that we tried to meet those needs. So we applied for some funding and we got it, and so we spent like 8 months renovating this space, making it really warm and welcoming, and then we opened our doors on the 27th of February 2017, so 4 years this year. So it's fairly new, well, still fairly new, but one of the key things that we're really passionate about was just continuing to have like conversations with local people. So we can, I actually came in working at the Millside as a community outreach worker. So most of my work was going in the community, getting to know the neighbours nearby, getting to know them by their names, understanding what they wanted to do at the centre, some of the projects that they wanted to see, and then really connecting with other organisations who wanted to use the space to meet those needs. So we started running English classes for women. So one of the key things that I identified was as I was doing outreach, I was really struggling to connect with people because of the language barrier. So the women would say, do you have classes? Can we come to a class at your place? And so that's when it made sense to start an English class. And in fact, we started the English class probably like 6 months before the building actually opened. So amidst all the men doing all the work, we had to like go in the building and like find a room, and just because we didn't want to wait until the building was ready. So we've always been passionate about identifying a need, and if we have capacity, training up volunteers to really to meet the needs. So we had like eight women started coming, and then it grew and grew until we started getting more people coming. And then so once the centre opened, we had already built a really good connection with our community, with partners who wanted to come and use the space. And so that's one of our key things. We didn't want to run everything on our own. We wanted to realise that actually there's a lot of resources, human resources, as well as capacity, other resources. So we made a really good connection with organisations like the Red Cross, who already at the time were looking for a space to run drop-in services for destitute asylum seekers and refugees. So by the time we opened, they already came in straight away and started doing that. And we liaised with another organisation to start doing a soup kitchen where we could serve food for those people who were homeless. And so it kind of just built from there. We had, maybe 1 or 2 services running each day until we would run like 5 services in a day. So most of the services that we run are, some of them are run by ourselves, so we have volunteers who are trained, and then the others are run by partners who basically rent out the room to do their own services. But the key thing that unifies us is the fact that most of the things that we're trying to do is it has to meet a need in the community. So it's not just about getting people to use the rooms and us getting money. So for example, the Red Cross coming in and they're meeting the needs of destitute asylum seekers and refugees. And then the homelessness issue was also there, so we wanted to get people who could come in and we could get to know them and give them food. But beyond that, actually meeting the emotional, physical, and also other needs, health, well-being, all those kind of stuff, and knowing where to signpost people to. So that's a little bit about what we do.
It's a lot of things, yeah. And when you mentioned advocacy there and working with asylum seekers and refugee groups, does that all lead into sort of aid with legal help and residency and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So immigration is such a big issue especially where we are, because we have a lot of transient communities. So asylum seekers can be brought to Bradford, and then within 2 months they're moved elsewhere. So when they do come to Bradford, most often they're looking for places where they can access services, where they can get help, particularly if they don't speak the language and they need someone to help them find a solicitor, help them to liaise with, if for example if they've been refused, how to put a fresh claim, taking them to the court for their hearing, those kind of stuff. So thankfully, Bradford has an amazing array of organisations who do so many things to help destitute asylum seekers and refugees, especially if they're living on their own. There tends to be a lot of them find themselves quite isolated. So connecting with organisations can almost feel like a sense of connecting with a family, people who are kind of on your side, who can help you through that journey of going through the immigration system until they either get refused, so they have to start the process again, or they get accepted, or they tend to stay in limbo for a long time. So if they do get accepted, that's a whole nother start of new challenges of having to find home. Oftentimes they have 28 days to find accommodation and find a job, which is ridiculous. So throughout that process, organisations like the Red Cross and Abigail Housing and Beacon come in and they offer them support, especially if they're close to being homeless, and just any other needs that they have.
So yeah, and I guess that one of the main parts then is the English lessons that you're providing. Are they going well? Have you managed to get some people through all the classes and finished at the end?
Yeah, so like I said, English class was one of our earliest projects that we started, and it's a huge need across Bradford, so we're not the only ones delivering that. So we've always been really passionate about starting with pre-entry level, because there are tons of ESOL classes in Bradford College or other community centres. So we often come across people who are fairly new to the city, who are new to the country. You need the basic start, and I think the biggest thing is just building people's confidence. So we realize, once somebody can speak a bit of English, they feel like, okay, maybe I'm able to go and volunteer, maybe I can then find a job. So it really is it's a stepping stone for a lot of people, and it's the crucial beginning. Without English, they actually can't integrate, they can't feel connected in the community. So we're always really passionate about making sure that we provide a safe space where people feel welcomed, where they feel like they can come and make mistakes. But due to COVID, before COVID we were running like 2 English classes, a women only session and also a mixed group, but we had to stop those because of COVID, and a lot of our, obviously, like a lot of other organisations, that we came across a lot of digital poverty, so not many of our service users could access things online. So we really struggled for the first few months of lockdown, trying to find where to signpost them to. But we did just find other resources like basic books and handbooks that they could do a lot of the learning from home. But recently, in fact, just this week at Millside, we started another ESOL class, which is our first ESOL class since we closed last year in March. So it's been over a year since we run an English class, but we do just see that there's a massive need, especially with people being at home, their sense of, again, losing their confidence in speaking, and has really affected people. But it's also bigger than that. It's being able to understand what's going on around them. With COVID, with the whole COVID situation, many of our service users don't watch the news. So you'll ask them, do you know that, Bradford is coming out of lockdown tomorrow, or we're going back into lockdown? And they were like, I've no idea. So it was so important for us to make sure that we were communicating those things. So we had created a lot of WhatsApp groups for all our different sessions. So we just encouraged the volunteers to, update people as often as they could, especially also speaking to them on the phone. So just those clarities, because you'd find people were going to each other's homes because they didn't realize that they couldn't. So like, language is such a key part of making sure that people are actually safe. It's for their own safety at the end of the day, especially during COVID, and just making sure that people were also well, they were able to look after themselves during this time. A lot of our service users have been affected with mental health, or just feeling really anxious about coming out. So we're really struggling to re-engage people at the moment. But yeah, English class is something we'd love to do more, but we've already got like a long waiting list of individuals who want to learn more English. So we do hope to have more classes.
Yeah, and those are gone, Danny.
Why are you finding a particular need with women for English lessons?
Yeah, well, initially it was women, because when I worked as an outreach worker, I would literally just go to people's homes, and I would do a lot of cold calling. Like, that was the only way I could make myself known as a community worker in the area. And I built a lot of really good relationships with women, just because of, I think, the cultural side of it as well. We work, particularly where we're based, we do have a lot of Asian communities, and oftentimes women would find it easier to connect with a woman, as apart from with a woman, rather than talking to a strange guy who just turns up at her door. So yeah, I think women, particularly in terms of the cultural aspect, a lot of women are mothers, they're staying at home, so they weren't engaging, they weren't aware. That was the key thing. They were not aware of services or organisations that were right on their doorstep. And these places I was going to were probably like 5-minute walking distance from Millside. So just that initial conversation and saying, hey, by the way, we've got a community centre 2 minutes away from here. Here's the address, come down on this day at 10 o'clock. And we've got this session and literally taking like flyers and leaflets and directing them with a map to where it was, or sometimes actually going up and collecting them and bringing them down, so that confidence of, okay, they could come on their own. So that was the key challenge. But I think, you know, as we started doing all our English classes, we also, obviously, we found that there were loads of men who also wanted to learn English. So the women found, again, I think the culture side, they didn't feel, I wouldn't say safe, they just didn't feel comfortable like being around other men in a classroom, whereas for others they didn't really care, they just wanted to learn. So that's why we had two separate groups. One was initially started just for women only, which was led by a woman, and the second group was a mixed class, so people could choose whichever one they wanted to go to.
And then this new class that you've just started, is, I'm guessing it's on Zoom or
No,
online somehow?
so it's actually face to face, social distance. So we have 8 students who come in, and we've got one of our largest room. So we just social distance them. We're working with a partnership. We're working in partnership with Safety First Training Centre, which is based in the city centre of Bradford. So they run a number of different classes, ESOL, ICT, for refugees and asylum seekers, but other members of the community, which are all free. So we reached out to them, and they provided a tutor who is running the session at Millside. And again, we had put a lot of our ESOL classes on hold for a long time, but the demand was just so great that we thought, actually, we need to help people better speak English so that they can, you know, understand the wider what's going on around them.
Yeah, how are you managing to deal with people who aren't speaking English very well, and obviously then you're, other than teaching them English, you're trying to help them with legal issues or lots of other things, but obviously there's a language barrier there. How are you managing to get through that?
Yeah, that's always a challenge. So I mean, the Red Cross are the main point of contact for things like legal support in terms of immigration. So we tend to just signpost them to the Red Cross. And often, I mean, before COVID, when the Red Cross would be at Millside, their key thing was they recruited a lot of volunteers who could speak different languages, who came from different countries. So that was already a bonus, because most clients who would come in would always, more often than not, have a volunteer who spoke the language. But then there are a lot of languages, so not everybody can have that privilege. But we do have connections with other community interpreting organisations like Enable2. So if we are struggling, we can just ring them up and get a translator on the phone, or an interpreter rather, on the phone to try and have that conversation. So a lot of our volunteers are also multilingual, which helps. And I think for myself, like, because I speak 4 languages, it does help when people walk through the doors and they don't speak English, and they're really you can tell they're really desperate or anxious about something, and they just want support. Being able to just say a word in their language just really takes off that pressure of like the fear and anxiety that they may have been carrying. So it does help being able to speak other people's languages as well, and knowing that you're not misunderstanding what they're saying, or and giving, I think mostly it's giving them that sense of I guess just showing compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know, even if we can't help them, it's reassuring them that we will signpost them to the right people who can.
Yeah, and that you're trying as well, and that you're there if they just need someone for some sympathy and some company. And something else you do is helping people with jobs. You have a job like job club,
yeah. Sorry, I should have done like a quick stop of all our services so you know what we do. So basically, shall I do that before I go into the job club?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, take us through all the other things.
I'll take you through. So before COVID, we were running like 2 stay and play groups for parents and families. Again, we were really passionate about breaking isolation, because that was one of the key things that came out of our research, the level of isolation and yeah, just people being stuck in their homes, not really knowing what was going on in the community, and the benefit of being able to join in with other community projects, and them knowing that they could come out of their shell and yeah, feel connected. That was such a key thing. So yeah, we did that with two other organizations, but also one was run by our own volunteer, and it was mainly for like pre-ESOL, sorry, not pre-ESOL, pre wait, preschool kids.
Preschool, yeah.
So ESOL's still in my head.
Yeah.
Preschool kids. But yeah, so we brought in elements of like music for the kids to develop, and lots of learning, fun games. But it was also quite an amazing time just for the mothers, because they could share a lot about some of their struggles of parenting and all that kind of stuff, but also share tips about what was working, like bedtime, so a lot of those conversations happened around that time of just 2 hours of them coming together, and the kids were running around and the parents could connect. And then we also had a job club in the afternoon, and the main part about the job club is making sure that because again, unemployment is huge in Bradford, which is a massive shame, but there are people who've been out of work for like for so long, but there's a need for people to be able to go somewhere to actually do the job search and get through support with getting a CV updated and having someone help them to where to apply for work, and just going through that whole process of like finding a job, but also getting them into opportunities of volunteering and training and things like that can help them better connect them so they can be better prepared to get a job. So that was on a Monday afternoon. So we work in communities to run that session, and that's still going on. Actually, that's remotely at the moment. So we work with about 20 clients who are currently looking for work. And over COVID, over the lockdown period since last year, we've managed to get eight of them have found jobs. So it's just being able to really journey with people, realizing that they do have goals and things they want to do, but that actually we're there for them, every step of the way. It might be that they go for a job interview and they don't get it, and it's like boosting their confidence and saying, no, things are going to get better, you will find it. And it's a tough time to find work during this time, to be honest. And so the competition out there is massive, but we're really keen to connect with employers and connect with the job centre and look at what opportunities are coming in and how many of those really match with people we're working with and what they're looking for. So having somebody that can, almost like a job coach, but from a really looking at the holistic person, and actually they might be looking for work today, but it might take them another 12 months to actually find work. What can we do in the meantime to make sure that they get other opportunities that can help them get there? And then Andy's Man Club used to be based at Millside in the evenings. Have you heard of Andy's Man Club? No, so they basically it's a support group for men, where they kind of brought men together to talk about their mental health. Their key thing is about suicide prevention due to the high numbers of male suicide in the UK. So it's a campaign to try and get men to talk and to break down that stigma of like, that people say men don't talk about their feelings, they don't talk about they don't open up about their thoughts. But believe it or not, before COVID, they had like over 50 men would access that service on a Monday evening, which is crazy. But it just comes to show that, if a service is run well and it's people centered, it can make a huge difference. And there's so many stories of men who just really benefited from that, and actually they're alive because of that service. So it really is saving lives. And then obviously we work with the Red Cross on Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays we run our English classes, and then we also had a community a music session in the afternoon. So at the time we're working with an organisation that worked with adults with learning difficulties. So they would come in, and it was just something that they looked forward to. They loved going to like community centres and accessing services like that. So they would come and sing and dance for like an hour and a half, and they would be leaving the centre like having the time of their lives. And it's just so good, because music is such a powerful tool to actually get people feeling uplifted, and just boosting people's mood, and obviously it's also really great for physical and mental health as well. So yeah, that's continuing. So actually during lockdown we moved that service, and currently we are delivering an hour-long online sing-along session for a local care home. So we have like this amazing care home that we've connected with. We know the manager, Zoe, really well, and they were really struggling to find creative stuff to get their residents to do, like during the weeks. So they reached out to us and said, could you provide a music session? And we just started it 2 weeks ago, and I joined in one of these Zoom sessions, and it was hilarious. Like the residents were up on their feet dancing with each other, and it was just honestly so special. And again, we're really blessed to have that amazing project, which is funded by the Arts Council, to actually during this time really make a difference in their lives. And let me think one more thing. So we will also work with Hope Housing. Hope Housing are an award-winning homelessness charity, and they're based on the same floor as us, actually, on the same building rather, and they help people who are on the borderline of being homeless to find permanent housing. But their work is also really holistic, in the sense that they then match them with a support worker who would help them with whatever other needs they have. So if they're looking for work, they then help them to find work. So it's really great, because we already run things like the Job Club and other services that they're able to access, pretty much as much as they want. So we tend to work with a lot of their clients. They work with clients, get them settled, and then they come into our Job Club, or they come into our men's group, or whatever else is going on. And a few of their clients, have had jobs just through accessing the Job Club. So
that's great.
It's like a one-stop shop. It's such a brilliant way of like making sure that we connect with each other in that sense. And then we also run a youth group. Gosh, we do a lot. we run a youth group on a Thursday evening. It only started during lockdown, actually. So we have Steph, who's our amazing youth worker, and we've just realised that actually young people have really suffered during this time, but there's not a lot going on apart from school and online learning. There isn't a lot that can really engage them. So we wanted to create just a safe space for them to come together, have fun, have banter, and just talk about things that they're really passionate about, and do loads of like creative stuff. So Steph is full of ideas, and so they've done like music they've done like music projects, putting together like their own tunes,
Cool.
and editing stuff. And then they held an event last year for Black History Month. So they've already done quite a lot of really cool stuff. And so we had during this part of lockdown, they've been mainly online, apart from yesterday. So they started meeting face to face as of yesterday. So that it's been really great just to start seeing them face to face again. And then I'll just tell you one more, because I think we could be here for another.
No, we want to know all of them.
So then we also run a life coaching session with a lady called Nina, who was incredible. So before COVID, we were working with domestic abuse victims, particularly women, looking at how to provide them with a safe space to just to unpack some of the things they'd gone through in a safe space. So it's a group-led session. So they come and share their stories, and they basically, it's giving them platforms to find tools of resilience, as well as just knowing how to move on. Facing some of the past, and then looking at how do I move on from this. So it was really really well-known program that just made such a huge difference. Last year we worked with over 40 women who went through the program. So it's a 6-week program, and they, you know, go through different phases of like recovery, but also looking at, you know, goal setting, you know, where do they want to be, and yeah, really like journeying with them to make sure that they get those goals achieved. So yeah, that unfortunately we had to put that one on hold during this time, but we do have you know, still high hopes of starting it again in the future. And oh yeah, the only other thing that was one of our highlights last year, we worked with Bradford Council to start a welcome cafe, which is a cafe run by refugees. And I guess the main idea of that was just, we recognised that a lot of migrants in general, refugees, asylum seekers, Eastern Europeans, were really struggling to find work, even though from wherever they came from, they had tons of skills and expertise and experience. And we thought it'd be so good if we could create a training centre, you know, with one skill that people really wanted to learn, and cooking kept coming up, and we thought, actually, yeah, let's do that. And in fact, it was Wahid Rashid from the council, who is the refugee engagement employment officer. He reached out to us and said, you know, would love to work with you, and they managed to we got funding from the council to basically run this training opportunity for 8 to 10 refugees. So they basically managed to get their level 2 food safety, but in the process they were actually learning how to run a small cafe. So we opened the cafe just before lockdown for a month, and we had customers coming in every day. We had it open 3 days a week, Wednesday to Friday, and the idea of the cafe was to recognize that a lot of these people, like, they had so much to give to our city. Like, they had a lot of recipes from their countries, food that we'd never tried before. So they brought the food, and they were able to learn about how to source the ingredients, how to market it, like how to sell it, you know, costings, all of those things, social media, where are we getting our customers from. So they learned a lot in such a short amount of time, and we managed to the first cohort graduated in December. So can you hear me? The first cohort graduated in December, so we're hoping to, once things calm down again, to get another cohort through. I'll stop there so you can.
With that cafe then, because that seems like all of the things they're doing sound amazing, but the cafe, it seems it was going so well. I guess, is there any plans in the future, once everything opens back up again, hopefully, to, if it was going so well, to maybe make more of them? Because you can train 8 people in one, then, and it's going well.
Yeah, we would love to. So I guess the challenge of lockdown is just it is a lot of investment, you know, to like open up and close and open up and close financially, but also it's tiring for people. But do you know what? The cafe was one of the only projects that kind of carried on during lockdown. Although we closed for a few months and then reopened in September, we actually reopened it as a takeaway. So we did realize that it is possible that it can, you know, we can do well. It's just with everybody working from home, it's just really difficult because we don't have a lot of the same customer base, so it's hard, but it does have potential. We are actually currently looking for a cafe like manager, so if you guys know anybody that's wanting to to work, ideally would love for them to be from a refugee background, just because that's kind of what the whole point of the project is, to train refugees and then actually employ them and give them that opportunity so they could bring all the ideas and to life. But there is a lot of potential for in the future for events. We already had so many requests to do events for things like Refugee Week or other festivals for the students to basically cater. So aside from the cafe just being based at Millside, there's a lot of opportunities for them to go further.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a look out for anyone who might be able to take your manager job.
Yeah, I do. Let me know.
Danny, did you have a question there?
No, I was just saying we'll put the word out. Yeah, you do a lot of services there. To go back to the jobs, are there any particular volunteer organisations you find which get these refugees particularly good experience, which get them ready for work?
That's a great question. So I think there's two parts to this. I think the first challenge that we definitely notice is that because a lot of asylum seekers end up being in the system for so long, like it really is, it breaks down on their character, you know, it really breaks down their confidence, it breaks down the sense of just wanting to even think of the future, you know, when your day-to-day struggle is just like, what's going to come out of this, you know, potential hearing, or am I going to be deported? You know, when your fears are so much more than finding that's not even on the radar. So what we find is once
you're not allowed to work while you're
not allowed to work,
exactly, not allowed to work and build your skills or keep your skills that you've already got or any of that. Yeah,
exactly. So when people do actually then, for example, but when they do get their status, oftentimes the barriers because they've not been engaging with anything to do with work or upskilling, they have to start from scratch. So then you're like, you've spent let's say 4 years not doing much, and then when you do finally have the opportunity to work, they're like, I can just do anything, even though if you look at their past career, you know, they're probably doctors or maybe they were engineers. So we have a guy at one of our service users. He's I won't say where he's from, but he's from, you know, the Horn of Africa, Eastern Africa, but he's been in the country for 3 years now, and in his country he was like a civil engineer, worked there for like 15-20 years, but he can't get a job, like he can't get a cleaning job, he can't get, and like we've tried everything, and it's so dehumanizing, and it's honestly one of the hardest things to have to tell this person, to give them hope when you're just like, we know it's really tough and we know that you've got great potential, but it's just the way, like at the moment that the job market is tough, and you know, that's why we're really passionate about making sure that there are other things they can do, because other than that, you know, you find that people are sitting at home not doing anything, and that messes up with people's psyche, their mental health, and so they're not even in a place where they can engage with services, they can engage with opportunities that come their way, because they don't have capacity to deal with that. So it's really hard, but also I think we do need to have more. I think a lot more organizations, a lot more employers need to be open to taking, you know, people who may not have had experience of working in the UK. You know, they may have had so many experience in their own country that they have transferable skills that can be used here, but unfortunately it's just really tough. It's really tough.
A lot of the people who we've spoken to from refugee and asylum seekers, the main thing that they're struggling with is a sense of sort of purpose when they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to.
In this country, really, you don't feel like you can actually participate in society.
Absolutely.
And I do think, to be honest, people in this country need to take some responsibility for this. There's a lot of people who say we should let refugees in. They don't do anything to help them once they're here. They don't actually understand what it's like from when they're here. They don't talk to them. It's just a stigma position they put out. And there's so much wasted human resources in this country. Like you said, these people are very experienced, very well qualified, very capable, and this country needs to start making use of them for the sake of this country, to build stuff in this country.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the quick example is just my own family, like my dad is a trained medical person. Like, he actually worked as a radiologist for like 20 years in Congo. And so when he came here, he thought he could just find a job in that field. But obviously that wasn't the case. And he tried every single avenue. And I mean, this is after we obviously had gone through the system of being asylum seekers and become refugees. But yeah, he just had to abandon that dream and think, actually, it's not meant to be. And so that's a lot of people's stories. You have this amazing skill, and it's just not your training isn't recognized in the country, so that it's really sad. But I also just think, people get to the point where they just want anything that can feed their families. Like, it doesn't matter what job it is, as long as it gives them, puts food on the table.
Yeah, I mean, and you're working in general in a particularly hard place in the country to find any job, and right now the hardest time to find a job in our lifetimes, at least. So
yeah,
and it's getting worse with automation from online. I do think.
Yeah.
Maybe we're getting too late. Yeah, we're moving away. It's becoming an increasingly inhuman society, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think people are a bit naive about this stuff. But anyway, with the music, so you've got people from lots of different backgrounds. What kind of music do you sing in these music sessions or get them to play? Because there must be a huge amount of different styles they're familiar with.
Yeah. So when we started the music, actually, there was a lady called Fran who reached out to us to say that, well, she's a music practitioner and she works a lot in the community. She's actually based in Leeds, but she did loads of stuff in Bradford. And this was around the time when she just set up like a refugee. I don't know if you've heard of Bradford Friendship Choir. So it's a refugee-led choir for refugees, but also anybody can join, to be honest. But yeah, so she set that up. But we were at the time really passionate about wanting to do, using music as a tool of connecting people. So she came and started doing a similar thing with Millside. So initially we wanted to we were inviting people to, again, similar to the cafe thing, inviting people to bring songs from their countries. So the songs were like, it was basically world song, like songs from around the world in different languages, using really basic, but a lot of them were really basic kind of like choruses that spoke about hope and unity and love and joy. I won't sing any of them, don't worry. But they were really, honestly, such simple songs with really simple melodies and rhythms, but it just really got people really singing and they loved it. But when Fran moved on and we had another guy started running it, and obviously our audience changed, because at the time anybody was coming, and then after a while we stopped, the music kind of stopped, and then we had to start again, and that's where we reached out to the organisation that they work with a lot of adults with learning difficulties, and they just loved it. They were looking for something that could engage their service users, and Millside just, for them it was the perfect thing for them to look forward to once a week. So with a different audience, the kind of, we had to change the style of music that we still had some world music in there, but a lot of it was around actually asking those who were coming in what they enjoyed, and then we would play those kind of music, and give them like time to like dance and have fun with each other. So we used to have like 30 plus people would come for the music session on a Wednesday, so it was very busy. Wednesdays were one of our busiest days. So the music we found, and then obviously now with it being online, it's again very different, because we're not actually allowed to sing in the same in a room anymore, so we're constantly having to change how we run how we provide that service depending on who we're working with.
Yeah, I have a two questions. One of them's a bit easier than the other. The first one is what's the name of the organization, this organization you're working with? And the second one is, when you're doing these sing-alongs, is everyone, can you hear everyone singing, or you only hear one person singing and everyone else is muted?
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, so the organization that we worked with were HFT. I think it stands for, it's really random, like Home Farm Trust. Yeah, so if you find, like, Google that, HFT Bradford, I think they're a national organization, but they do have like different bases in Bradford. And yeah, so the base that came to Millside came from just down the road from us, Culture Fusion. But then some of the other bases across different parts of Bradford would then come to access the singing session in the afternoon. And then the second question was around, what was the question again?
When you're all doing your sing-along.
Oh yeah, the sing along. So the sing along is it's quite interesting. And again, because we've only been doing it for 2 weeks, we're still learning. Bless Tom, but Tom's great, the guy that runs it. It's different with our kind of the elderly residents, because quite a lot of them are quite old, but they also have, Alzheimer's, or they've got other health issues. So some of them have actually physical health issues, as well as, they're actually, they can't really participate as much. But the others get up and they sing along, because it's only for one care home. So what they do is they've got like a screen where they project the Zoom session, and they've got speakers so they can hear Tom doing the music on his instrument. But so we can't hear them as much, but they can hear Tom. And then during the in-between sessions, Tom will kind of ask them what other songs they want. So there's a bit of participation there. But when the session's running, they do have staff who help all the residents kind of like join in, those who can anyway. But so it's mainly conversations with the staff who help to kind of shout out what next song they want us to play.
I was imagining like 30 people all on one screen, and everyone's trying to sing, but because of all the delays, you can't hear any music.
You can't do any of that singing on Zoom. It's definitely not. It's not meant to be.
No. But the way you're doing it does sound like a good.
Yeah, I think we've got. We'd love to open that for other care homes as well. So we're just kind of getting settled, and we know that a lot of other care homes are looking for like just creative stuff to get their residents to engage with. And music again is such a great tool, because they spent a lot of time asking those residents like what were some of the songs they used to sing when they were younger, so bringing back some of their childhood memories. So we've built like a really good solid kind of bank full of music that we'll start to bring back to them. And even those who are struggling with remembering things, it's so powerful how they're able to remember songs like word by word, even without seeing anything on the screen. So
I've seen that with music before, with people with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. It can have a massive effect on their cognitive ability.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but it's amazing.
It's powerful, yeah. Music is just an incredible tool, I think, like to just make people feel, I don't know, it's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but yeah, we should do more music.
Well,
Yeah.
apart from the pandemic, it'd make it much easier as well, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the things we were planning before COVID was to have like a fundraising gig at Millside, just to invite like local musicians and maybe myself. I do sing here and there. I'll just drop that there.
See, when you threatened to sing earlier, you meant it.
But yeah, so we were trying to like bring musicians to come, and yeah, it's just a great, I think, music can really connect people and allow people to tell their stories. So yeah, maybe in the future, one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great interview. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much for talking to us.
before we finish, where can people buy your album?
My album. Oh, okay. That might be prophetic, How do you know I'm bringing out an album? That's so funny because I am actually writing some songs right now, so maybe in the future.
Next interview will be when you release the album then.
Grammy. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Never say
Yeah.
never.
I'll let you know when my music comes out in 2022.
Great, looking forward to it. Thanks so much for the interview.
Thank you for having me.